An engineer pushes one quick firewall edit, no ticket, no review. 3 months later, an auditor finds the hole, and nobody can say who opened it. That is uncontrolled change, a top root cause of both outages and security incidents. This is CompTIA Security plus Objective 1.3 Change Management. Here is the plan. Why this lives in Domain 1, the approval process and change types, ownership and stakeholders, impact analysis. The most tested idea here, the safety nets, the technical implications, and documentation. Stick around for the mnemonic at the end. Start with the why. Most breaches blamed on human error actually began with a change that skipped a review step. Without a control process, every other control you have silently erodes over time. A mature process trades a little speed for a large drop in risk. Picture the 4 ways this goes wrong. An ad hoc firewall edit opens a hole that never gets closed because no ticket tracks it. A new service that cannot negotiate modern ciphers breaks the TLS handshake. An untested build ships a regression to production. And a surprise change confuses downstream teams because no stakeholder map warned them. One defined process reduces all 4. Every meaningful change moves through a defined sequence, so risk is evaluated before it reaches production. Request documents the change and affected systems. Impact analysis figures out what could go wrong. The Change Advisory Board, the CAB, approves it. Scheduling places it in a maintenance window. Execution runs it against a runbook. Verification produces the test results. Enclosure updates the docs and captures lessons. Match the scenario to the right change type because the type sets how much review you need. A standard change is pre-approved and low risk, like an approved patch baseline, so it skips CAB review each time. A normal change carries real risk, so requires CAB review and scheduling first. An emergency change responds to an active outage or threat, so you act fast, then document and review afterward. Here is the exam trap. A 0-day gets patched within the hour, paperwork filed afterward. That is an emergency change, not a standard one. Standard means pre-approved and routine. The word urgent almost always points to emergency. And remember, emergency still needs documentation and a review after the fact. Every change has one accountable owner. The owner plans it, runs it, and lands it from request to clean closure. Why one person? Because when everyone owns it, no one owns it, and the change stalls. Think of the owner as the single name on the change, answerable for the result end to end. Do not confuse ownership with approval, because the exam pairs them in distractors. The CB authorizes the change. The owner drives it. If a question asks who is accountable end to end, the answer is the owner, not the board that signed off. The owner still coordinates approvers. Technical, security, business, and compliance or audit. Stakeholders are the people and teams affected by the change, and a stakeholder map prevents surprises. End users see different behavior. Downstream teams depend on it, so a break here cascades to them. Upstream teams feed it and can collide with you. Customer support fields the calls. Executive sponsors get summary-level notice. Identifying them is a security task because an uninformed downstream team can react in ways that create new exposure. The exam loves a stakeholder twist. Which group is the least important to notify? When an application authentication service is upgraded, the facilities team that runs physical building access is not affected because badge access uses a separate system. Stakeholder identification asks one question: who is actually affected? If a team does not depend on the change, they're not a stakeholder in it. This is the single most tested concept in the whole objective, so slow down here. Impact analysis answers one question before approval. What is the worst case, and what is this touch that we did not expect? You check scope, which systems and data are affected. Dependencies, what talks to this and what it talks to. Security implications, does it change authentication, encryption, or logging? Compliance, does it touch PCI or HIPAA data? Availability, is there downtime? And the rollback trigger and steps defined in advance. Here is the highest yield pattern on this exam. A team takes a central auth service offline, rates it low impact because few users log in directly and dozens of unrelated apps go down. The missing step is dependency mapping, part of impact analysis. When a change broke something, the missing piece is usually impact analysis, then a backout plan, then stakeholder communication, in that order. A backout plan, also called a rollback plan, is the tested path back to the last known good state, and it is mandatory for every change. We will figure out if it breaks is not a plan. You need a state snapshot before the change, a tested revert procedure, go or no-go criteria defined in advance, and a rollback time budget so the team knows when to cut losses. 2 backout traps. When a change goes wrong mid-window, the artifact that restores service fastest is a tested backout plan, not a fresh impact analysis. Impact analysis happens before the change, so it cannot help during an incident. And if the team has revert steps but hesitates on when to act, the fix is predefined rollback criteria and a time budget. A backout that was never tested is not a backout, it is a guess. A maintenance window is a scheduled block for planned, announced disruption. Pick low-impact timing, often nights or weekends, so a failure hits fewer users with more responders around. Announce it in advance. Lock it from concurrent changes, because 5 changes in one window turn a single failure into a which one broke it puzzle. And keep observability on, so the team works in light, not darkness. 2 window facts the exam leans on. If 3 teams stack unrelated changes in one window and something breaks, no one can tell what change did it. So keep the window locked to one change at a time and cause stays traceable. And a change freeze is the opposite of a window. It blocks all non-emergency changes during high-risk periods, like quarter end for finance or peak season for retail. 2 more terms the exam separates. Test results come from verification. You deploy to staging, run the suite, and attach the passing output to the change record. That evidence justifies keeping the change. A standard operating procedure, the SOP, is the canonical, repeatable instruction set for routine work. If a change alters how a task is done, you must update the SOP. Now, the other half of this objective, the technical implications a change introduces. Both sides show up in 1.3 scenarios. When a change adds or removes a service, its allow lists and deny lists often must move with it, because the network does not learn about the new service on its own. Allow lists are permitted domains, IPs, or apps. Deny lists are blocked entries. Picture a new microservice calling a partner API that times out even though the service is healthy. The egress allow list was never updated, so it fails silently. Restricted activities means scoping the change to only the approved target and forbidding unrelated work. The ticket says patch the database service only and explicitly forbids editing the OS or network config in the same session. Anything outside that scope needs its own change request. This contains the blast radius and prevents scope creep. The while I am in here edits, no one reviewed, and no one can later explain. Downtime is the planned period service is unavailable, so you estimate it, communicate it, and confine it to the window. The exam distinguishes restart types by blast radius. A service restart hits a daemon, but watch for other apps or tenants on the same host that share it. An application restart is narrower, but still drops active sessions and in-flight transactions. Decide in advance whether dependents auto-recover and whether a rolling restart avoids a hard stop and start. Legacy applications resist the modern process. They may support only old Cypher suites that clash with policy. They may require an unpatchable OS version, freezing them on known vulnerable software. And they often lack monitoring hooks, so you cannot see inside them during a change. The usual exam answer is to wrap them with compensating controls, like network segmentation, a WAF, or extra logging, until they can be retired. Dependencies turn a local change into a system-wide event. A shared service outage cascades, so one authentication failure can take down dozens of apps at once. The key exam habit: pull the dependency map from a configuration management database, a CMDB, or a service catalog, not from memory. Memory is exactly where unmapped dependencies hide and where impact analysis goes wrong. Every change updates the written record, so the next change starts from reality, not a stale mental model. The change record captures approvals, risk rating, windows, and stakeholders. The runbook holds the execution and backout steps. Updated diagrams keep network drawings accurate, and updated policies and procedures, including the SOP, keep the standard way of doing the task current. The exam treats missing documentation as a real failure, not a nicety. Version control treats configuration as code. Terraform, Kubernetes manifests, firewall rules, and Git. It earns 3 things: reviewability, Every change is a diff someone approves before it merges. Reversibility, a bad change reverts to the previous commit, your built-in backout. And auditability, the git log answers who changed what and when. This ties to reproducibility. Rebuild from source, not from memory. Time to lock it in with a mnemonic. The lifecycle is raise VC, request, approve, impact analysis, schedule, execute, verify, close. And pair it with this. Every change needs an owner, a window, and a backout. Here are the takeaways. The CAB approves, but one accountable owner drives each change. Impact analysis is the most common missing step, and it must include dependencies. A backout plan is mandatory and tested, and test results justify keeping a change. Maintenance windows limit concurrency and keep observability on, while a change freeze blocks non-emergency work in high-risk periods. Version control plus updated docs gives a reproducible audit trail. And the decision shortcut to carry into the exam. When a change broke something, the missing piece is almost always impact analysis, a backout plan, or stakeholder communication, in that order before any deeper technical fix. That is Objective 1.3, Change Management. All of Domain 1 is free, with lessons, practice questions, and hands-on labs at SY0-701. Go run the practice set on this objective while it's fresh, and I will see you in the next one.